Hello, my name is Tommy Pigott. Welcome back to the Republican Rundown. This week we thought we'd discuss the border, given the fact that Biden's border crisis is raging completely out of control like it has been for years. What's changed, though, is the rhetoric from the Biden administration. The Biden administration, after seeing and no longer being able to deny the fact that their border policies are complete failures, has tried to shift and deflect blame, in a pattern that is all too familiar for the American people when it comes to Biden's failed policies. Here's a recent comment from Biden trying to shift blame and abdicate responsibility for the crisis.
Every day between now and November, the American people are going to know that the only reason the border is not secure is Donald Trump and his MAGA Republican friends.
So that clip wasn't from the first month of Biden's administration. It wasn't even from the first year. That was 3 years after Joe Biden took office. And the biggest problem with that statement is that it's patently false. It's absurd that he is trying to blame President Trump and Republicans for the crisis Joe Biden created. Here is Biden's own DHS secretary bragging about the fact that they were reversing Trump's policies.
And I'd like to understand from you what Trump-era immigration policies have been banned, ended, reversed, and if any investigations are underway by you.
So we have rescinded so many Trump immigration policies, it would take so much time to list them.
So many Trump immigration policies, it would take so much time to list them. They were bragging about this. That was from Biden's first year in office, even as the border crisis was beginning to grow, beginning to spiral out of control. They were bragging about the fact that they were reversing Trump's policies. And indeed they were. In Biden's first 100 days, he took 94 executive actions to open the border and reverse Trump's policies. Here are some of those policies on the screen now. Those policies included reversing Remain in Mexico, ending construction of the border wall, ending the national emergency on our border. These are policies that Biden took to reverse Trump's policies, and those policies Biden took created this border crisis. And that was just the beginning. Those 94 executive actions were the first of hundreds of executive actions that Biden has taken to undermine and dismantle border security, even as the border crisis rages out of control. And the results speak for themselves. You can look at the data. Here's a graph of border crossings under Trump compared to Biden. You can see as soon as Biden takes office, as soon as he reverses these border policies, he creates the worst border crisis in U.S. history. That's not a coincidence. That's a direct result of his policies. And remember, during this time, Mayorkas was bragging, Biden's DHS secretary was bragging about all of the policies that Biden reversed. So this is what makes Biden's claim now that somehow this is Republicans' fault so patently false and so absurd. It's clearly Biden's policies that have created this crisis. And it's not just the stats showing this, even though the stats tell the whole story about how Biden's policies created and fueled this crisis. It's the fact that Biden's lies have changed again and again and again. This latest attempt to blame Republicans is the latest in a long line of lies from Joe Biden about the border crisis from the very beginning. Here is Joe Biden at the beginning of his administration and his first excuse about what was happening at the border.
It happens every single solitary year. There is a significant increase in the number of people coming to the border in the winter months of January, February, March. It happens every year.
Again, that was the first months of Biden's administration where we saw this starting to spiral out of control. He decided to purposefully look the other way, to double down and insist his policies were working, and then blame the weather, blame seasonality for the crisis. You saw the stats yourself. The stats show that year after year, month after month, we have seen the worst border crisis in U.S. history, regardless of the weather, and it's because of Biden's policies. Now, on top of claiming that it was seasonal, they also were claiming that their border policies were working. Here is Joe Biden claiming that they had gotten the crisis under control back in April 2021.
But in April alone, Mr. President, 170,000 people, migrants, apprehended at the border. It's a 20-year record. There are 22,000 unaccompanied children in our country right now. That's a record. That sounds to most folks like a crisis.
Well, look, it's way down now. We've now gotten control.
We've now gotten control. That was years ago. And those numbers discussed in that clip, those are much lower than they are today. We have seen many months that have vastly surpassed those numbers under Joe Biden. So no, he hadn't gotten control. No, it wasn't seasonal. So they quickly realized that no one's buying the fact that this is business as usual at the border. So instead, they decided to name Kamala Harris border czar to try to address the issue at the border. But at the same time, they didn't want to admit the truth that it was their policies that created this crisis, so they invented something called root causes. Here's Kamala Harris discussing what she views her role as border czar to be.
You were tapped by President Biden to oversee the root causes of the migration issue at the southern border. Our colleagues in Laredo are telling us that nonprofits there are just overwhelmed and they want federal help. What plans are there to send more federal aid to these communities along the border?
Well, here's the way I see it. We've got to deal with the root causes in addition to what are the effects, right? Now, my focus has been on the root cause.
So notably missing there is any reference to border security. This root causes narrative was invented by the Biden administration, again, to try to deflect blame from their policies when it was their policies that were the actual root cause of the border crisis. As evidence of that, it wasn't just from a few countries that people were coming from. Border Patrol has seen people from over 160 countries try to illegally cross the border. That indicates that it's Biden's policies that are encouraging people from all across the world, including from communist China, to come to the border and try to cross the border. That means criminals from all over the world are trying to exploit this crisis. Cartels are trying to exploit this crisis. Terrorists, we know, have been caught trying to cross the border. What's worrying is the 1.8 million gotaways that have escaped into the country since Joe Biden took office. 1.8 million gotaways. We don't know who they are, where they're going, what their intentions are, only that they purposely evaded law enforcement, even as the vast majority of those encountered were being released into the country. People that were afraid to be apprehended and encountered by law enforcement, even as thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people were being released. That should worry every single American. But even as 1.8 million illegal immigrants are crossing the border and escaping into the country, going who knows where, doing who knows what, only we know the fact that terrorists are trying to cross the border now, Kamala Harris and the administration was still insisting the border was secure. Here's Kamala Harris in an interview saying just that.
2 million people cross this border for the first time ever. You're confident this border is secure?
We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration.
And it's not just Kamala Harris who's saying this. DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas testified that the border was secure before Congress.
It is my testimony that the border is secure, and we are working every day, day and night, to increase its security. The challenges that we are experiencing at the border cannot be overstated.
Again, at the same time they're insisting the border is secure, millions of gotaways have escaped into the country. And on top of that, even those that are apprehended and encountered are being released with little to no vetting because experts say the ability to vet them simply does not exist. That is the opposite of a secure border. So they've been lying for years about this. They've been lying again and again and again. And to complete the gaslighting, the Biden administration then started to say that things were going better than expected. Things are just hunky-dory, everything's going great. Here's Biden responding to a question about how the border crisis was going.
Things are going at the border, sir.
Much better than you all expected.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
No, I think. Pardon me?
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
Not in the near term, no. No, just be disruptive, not anything else.
So Biden's laughing about the border crisis even as it continues to spiral out of control. Every tiny little blip down, they claim this giant success. But for 35 months, over 35 months in a row, we have seen illegal encounters higher than any month under the Trump administration. That's nothing to laugh about. That's nothing to brag about. In fact, it's a worrying sign for every single American, especially as we see those numbers increase and remain high month after month after month after month. This is Joe Biden's border crisis. So now what he's trying to say is, oh, there's nothing I can do to solve it because all of these lies, these years of lies, have been proven false again and again. It's not seasonal. The border is not secure. They don't have control of the crisis. After all these years, their lies have been debunked again and again and again. So now what Biden's trying to say is he's done all he can do. He's throwing his hands up as if he's taken action in the past and saying, I need help. This isn't my fault. Don't blame me. There's nothing I can do. Here's Joe Biden talking to that effect.
With executive authority, or is there more you could do absent legislation?
Not all I can do. Just give me the power. I've asked for the very day I got in office. Give me the border patrol. Give me the people, the judges. Give me the people who can stop this and make it work for us.
There are so many lies in that clip, it's almost hard to unpack them all. First of all, that bill that he's talking about was an amnesty bill, not a bill to secure the border. And he was proclaiming such before he took office, that it was an amnesty bill. On top of that, he has not done all he can do. He could start by reversing those executive actions that he took in his first 100 days in office. If he took those actions, he could end the border crisis today. He is refusing to. If he insists on legislation, the House has passed H.R. 2, the Secure the Border Act, over 300 days ago. He has been blocking it. Chuck Schumer has been blocking it. What Biden could do is say to Senate Democrats, pass it, I'll sign it. That would also end the border crisis. He is refusing to do that as well. And on top of all of that, Biden is still actively undermining border security today. Texas has stepped up to secure the border as Biden has abdicated his responsibility to do so. And as Texas has stepped up, Biden is suing Texas to try to stop them from securing the border. He's doing that now. Even as he's claiming he's doing everything he can to secure the border, he is actively undermining border security. And that's where this contrast is so stark between President Trump and Joe Biden. President Trump will end this border crisis the day he takes office. And instead of suing Texas, he'll send Texas reinforcements.
When I'm president, instead of trying to send the state of Texas a restraining order, I will send them reinforcements. They're going to get reinforcements. They're doing a good job. And I'll use all necessary military and law enforcement resources to defend the United States of America.
So with all the lies that Joe Biden has told about the border, with Joe Biden's current attempt to deflect and blame others when it comes to this border crisis, with his refusal to take action to end this border crisis and secure the border, action he could take today, it is no wonder that Americans do not trust Joe Biden when it comes to the border. It's no wonder that President Trump is favored when it comes to ending this border crisis by 30 points by American voters. It's no wonder that Americans know that Trump will secure the border and that Joe Biden never will. Joe Biden is purposefully allowing this border crisis to continue. When President Trump is reelected, he will end it on day one. This has been the Republican Rundown. Tune in next week for more.